What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down why the market saw a massive rug pull today after we got the Fomc results and Jerome Powell's speech, what you should be watching for as I give you guys my predictions for tomorrow. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. Anyways, today was the FOMC day, and we saw the market see a massive rug pull, especially as Powell was speaking. But it wasn't just that, it also happens to be my birthday. I just wanted to say that I have one wish for everyone, and that is I wish you all happiness and prosperity for the rest of the year, for 2025 and beyond. And I just wanted to say I really appreciate you guys so much for your attention, for all your guys' kind comments below, and for listening to me almost every single day. But anyways, we had Jerome Powell speaking, and the market saw quite a bit of red. So the question is, what's happening from here? But the market was very crazy today. We got a very big move to the downside. We saw SPY down about 3%. Tesla was down 8%. The QQQ was down 3.6%. So the whole market got this rug pull. And if you guys were watching my videos, okay, I was talking about how Tesla was near all-time highs, breaking them early in the morning. So I gave you guys some heads up about that. But then in that video, I said that in order for that to continue, it depends on the Fed and Jerome Powell to be very careful nonetheless. And then we got some results from what the Fed was going to do with rates. And as soon as that came out, I had a feeling the market was going to sell off, especially as SPY lost 602, the QQQ lost 540 and 535, and then Tesla started to lose its support at 570. So I suspected there was going to be a rug pull, and that's why I said it in this video. If you guys look back at the video, you guys could watch it right now, the one where I talked about the new FOMC warning. That was where I called out how there was going to likely be some downside, and Jerome Powell would likely favor that. So I'll give you guys a heads up about that right before Jerome Powell's speech. And if you guys, caught the video on time, you guys would have been prepared for it. But sometimes crazy moves could happen. You can't always call them a day in advance. Sometimes you have to wait like a couple of hours before the move ends up happening, even like minutes before. So that's why I, gave you guys a real-time update. But anyways, what happened with the market? Why did Tesla sell off like this? Why did the market get a big rug pull? If you look at things right now, I just want to say that everything's essentially in the red. If you look at Aapl, it's down 2%, Nvidia's down 1%, Google's down 3%, and the list goes on. Tesla's down 8%. So what on earth happened? What did Jerome Powell say? I'll start off with that, and I'll talk about Tesla news and then the charts. So for today, just know this. We had the FOMC report. We had the Fed interest rate decision right over here. They cut rates by 25 basis points, which was decent for the markets, exactly as predicted. However, there was more data that came out that caused the market to sell off. And this is what I talked about in my previous video, why this was looking more bearish. So if you look at this, we had the interest rate projections that came out. For the first year, it was at 3.9%. Second year at 3.4%, and third year at 3.1%. But look at the numbers on the left side and the right side. Notice that on the right side, these numbers are lower than the numbers on the left side, right? And what this signifies is that before the market was thinking that the Fed was going to cut even more. They're going to cut by like over 1% for the year, 1 year out, 2% 2 years out, for instance. Instead, it's going to be even less than that. Instead, the Fed will continue to cut, but to a lesser extent. That's what their plan is right now because of what's happening with the data. So the Fed is telling us they're going to continue to cut, but not as much as before. They may have to cut slower than before, and that's why the market saw this big rug pull. And I'm going to explain exactly why that is and how that makes sense. So if you look at the new January probabilities, now there's a 93.6% chance the Fed keeps rates the same in January during the next FOMC meeting. That's a very big shift compared to how we were expecting cut after cut. That's a big shift. So why did this happen? What did Jerome Powell, the big guy, say? What is going on? Let's explain this data here. So Jerome Powell was saying that the economy is still in a good place, right? The labor market is not doing terribly. If anything, it's still holding up well. He did imply that there are some contractions in the labor market that are happening right now. He did say that job growth is slowing down, but at the same time, the Fed is just continuing to monitor the situation. And then he spoke about PCE data, how, it is showing a little bit of a shift in the trend. So here's what Jerome Powell said. He said that inflation is eventually going to meet the goals for many, many years to come, but there is a bit of a delay. There's a bit of a delay because of multiple factors that are causing inflation to go up again. If you look at the data right here for CPI, okay, look at this purple maroon line right over here. I'm colorblind, so I may have called that wrong, but it doesn't matter. All items without food and energy. Okay, this is core CPI. This was the same as before. We're not seeing this decreasing. It's just kind of flat. And then for all items CPI, the blue line right here, this is on a slight uptrend. So CPI is starting to go up a little bit. The same thing happened with the PCE inflationary data report. And, it's very interesting because the market continued to hold up despite this data coming out and finally got a reality check after Jerome Powell was speaking. So what happened? What is Jerome Powell saying? He's saying that for the short term, inflation is actually projected to go up a little bit more, especially as we approach next year. And the Fed has to be very careful. They don't want to cut rates too fast. They don't want to raise them too fast. They want to be very, very careful with that. And they're in a position of risk where they have to be really, really careful. So that's the reason why they're being very careful with cutting rates. And that's why they're planning on cutting them at a slower rate than before, because inflation is starting to come up again. That's the reason why. And that's why the market started to see a bit of a sell-off. Now, here's how rates work, right? When the Fed raises rates, it has a delayed effect on the economy. It could take 12 to 18 months to see any sort of effect. And what happens is when the Fed started their cutting cycle, things are going to be kind of like improving, at least as time goes on, as years progress. When the Fed starts cutting, yes, there's going to be some shifts in the way the market moves, but just know that that just means that they're going to ease on policy. Now, they're not going to be cutting as fast as they initially expected. So that implies that after 1 year, right, the rate's going to be at 3.9% instead of 3.4%, which implies rates are going to be higher for longer, higher than expected, higher for longer. It's going to take them longer to get rates down. So the effects of these higher rates are going to have a more profound effect on the economy. It's going to have a negative effect on job growth, on the jobs, the labor market and such. It's going to negatively affect our economy for longer. And that's going to be affecting all these companies, even companies like Tesla, because of interest rates. It will affect them to some extent. So I hope that's as clear as possible, guys. That's why the market was selling off the way it did. Jerome Powell was trying to say everything is okay. He did even say that the US avoided a recession, but at the same time, like I said before, the labor market is contracting, and simultaneously there are signs that inflation is going up a bit, and the Fed has to be a lot more careful. That's why we got the sell-off we did. Going into tomorrow, let me just say that we have Nike and FedEx and BlackBerry all announcing their earnings after market close. So please be prepared for that in case you guys want to play these. These could be more interesting. And then going into tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday, December 19th, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens, we have the GDP numbers and initial jobless claims coming out. This might cause some volatility, so we'll see how GDP growth ends up looking. Then we have some bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So watch for some volatility because of the GDP numbers and initial jobless claims tomorrow, and we'll see what this all leads to. As far as Tesla goes, there was good news and bad news. Some not so good news is this right here. The Gigafactory in Shanghai is led by Song Gang. I may have said his name wrong. I apologize about that. But he is going to be leaving Tesla, unfortunately. So I just wish him the best moving forward. And Tesla has to replace him as time goes on. So not the best of news. He's been the main manager since 2018 at the Giga Shanghai. And now he's going to once again be leaving to a different company. So it is what it is. He gave his goodbye letter for today. So I just wish him the best. Reuters has claimed that this is not only the largest factory by output and exports to Europe and South Asia, but with him leaving, it's going to affect Tesla, and we'll have to see how they replace him. On top of this, there is some news coming out that Tesla could be announcing a refreshed version of the Model Y, aka Juniper. This isn't confirmed by Tesla officially, but there's been a lot of quote-unquote sightings and such of this new model, and people are very excited about this. So maybe this is going to be coming out next year. Maybe it will. We'll see about that. Also, Tesla did get some price upgrades from Mizuho to outperform. That was great news, which is what helped Tesla pump the way it did to new all-time highs. But Tesla's starting to slow a bit. Their price-price ratio is coming down a little bit because Tesla is losing some of its strength relative to before. And then historically, Thursdays are green only about 47.6% of the time. And we tend to see more volatility at 11 o'clock a.m., not to mention 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So with that being said, I went over the majority of the news already, so I just want to focus on what's happening with the charts and just the charts from this point on. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, The market sold off really hard, really fast, and I think that's a little bit oversold. And I would like to see some kind of rebound attempt. Now, it does not guarantee that the market's going to rebound forever. It could just be a small move, but I think that it's very important to pay attention to these charts. So, as far as Tesla goes, I just want to say that if you look at the trend, okay, and the same thing can be said about SPY and the QQQ. Look at the trend: higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. And all of a sudden, after Jerome Powell gave a speech, we got this rug pull. And now we're starting to show signs that we broke the lows here. So Tesla's going to attempt to rebound most likely. But here's the problem: we could be making a lower high here. If we make a lower high somewhere here, especially as we get very close to like the 450 area, this could be a sign Tesla may shift directions and then start to dip a little bit lower. There's always that possibility, but it depends on the levels. So I think the daily charts are very important to watch for. For Tesla, if we rebound, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 450. If that breaks, I'm looking for 458 to 460. And if we can't break past 460, we will turn back down. So watch 460 is the main level. That's where we have this previous support becoming resistance, very close to that range. And watch 450 is the main resistance as well. If we turn back down, look at 440 as our support. If that fails us, we could be dipping closer towards the low of the day. And if that fails, I see this dipping closer to about not only 420, but all the way down to where this next 20 EMA happens to be, close to about that the low 400s to fill this gap down here. So if you lose 420, we're looking for that gap fill towards 401. So be very, very careful. What is my prediction? I went over the levels, but what is my prediction? I think Tesla's going to attempt to rebound a bit and try to get back up towards the 450 area. If we break that, we're looking for the mid 450s, like 455, then eventually 460s resistance. So 460 is going to be a very, very good potential target for Tesla. If we reject off that, we could be dipping back down and making a move right back down towards the low all over again. This could be a sign that Tesla's about to shift directions, especially as we're getting high volume selling and because of the fear that's starting to be brought by the markets. So look for a rebound tomorrow for a big test at 450. If that breaks, we're looking for 455, then eventually 458 to 460. 460 is going to be a tough resistance because that was previous support. And then if we reject off that, we could turn back down and start to retest the lows again. So that could be a sign we're about to pivot, but look for an attempt to rebound right back up here towards 450 at the very least, and 458 or so. So watch those levels. As far as SPY goes, we got this massive, massive rejection so far. We dropped over 20 points, which is insane. However, here's the thing about that. We've dropped so far so fast. If we lose the support right here around the 584 area, I think we could be dumping to 580, then 576 to fill the gap. If we bounce back up to 590, we have to break that to get back up to 595, and then we'll have to see what kind of reaction we get. Just like SPY, we have the same thing going on. If you look at the trend, made a low here, made a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and etc. And then finally today, for the first time, we actually broke 602, so we made a lower low. So are we about to make a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, just like that? I'll be watching that very carefully. I suspect we might be coming down to fill this gap, but before that happens, there might be a rebound attempt. That's the most likely case. So look for an attempt to get back up to 590 once we base around this like 585 zone where the support happens to be. Once we base here, look for an attempt to get up to 590.8. If we break that, we're looking for 595. And then what could happen is we might not make a V-shaped recovery because of the fact that the Fed is shifting their policies. This could be a lower high around 595 before we start to turn. And then we could be dipping right back down to 585, and eventually back down to 580 and 576. So look for a rebound attempt for 590.8, then eventually 595, and then we could reject back down if that fails. So please keep that in mind. For ES, it's the same thing essentially. This is looking very weak. There might be an attempt to get back up to 59.80 or very close to that range where we have previous support becoming resistance. Then we could be turning around 59.80 to turn back down towards 5,900 flats. Then eventually this gap fill back down towards 58.84. So look for a rebound attempt for 59.80, then a rejection, and move back down towards these lower levels such as 5,900. We'll have to see what kind of reaction we get from there. I am favoring that 59.80 could be coming for a small little rebound, 59.60 to 59.80 to be more precise, and then we could be turning back down to fill this gap towards 58.80. So be careful, guys. There is still a risk of more downside on ES. For Nvda, I do anticipate it's going to try to rebound. It's going to try to hold 130. If that breaks, we could attempt to get up to 133 to 136. But then, like I said before, There are gaps to fill down on Nvidia. There's one over here. I think we filled the first one, but the second one is still down here around 119. And we have a head and shoulders, which makes me a little bit more concerned. We also rejected very, very nicely towards our 15-20 EMAs. So look for a rebound attempt for 132 to 133, then a rejection and a move back down towards 128. If that fails us, we're looking for 125, and then eventually this gap fill below. So a rebound and a rejection are going to be the most likely possibilities. For Bitcoin, we're looking weaker, but we're barely holding support at our 20 EMA. So watch 99,736 is the main support. If that fails us, we're looking for a move back down to 96,500, and eventually 92,000. If we rebound, we're looking for 104,000. I presume we're going to be trying to push for 102,500 and 104,000 in that range. And if we make a lower high, just like that of SPY and the others, then we could start turning lower, and Bitcoin could be looking for a small dip. Please keep that in mind. Bitcoin is a little bit more resilient despite what happened with the Fed, but there could be a little rebound attempt for 102,500 before we turn back down. So please keep that in mind, guys. That's what I'm essentially projecting. For other factors out there, we have NQ. NQ is looking more bearish. If we lose 21,264, we could be dumping towards 21,000 flat. And if we bounce, we're looking for resistance at 21,682 to 21,800. I presume we're going to be trying, we might dip a little bit more than a bounce for 21,860, or sorry, 21,680, excuse me, guys. Then we have 21,800 above that. So look for a rebound to that range. Then we could reject and start turning back down to the 50 EMA. So we'll have to see if that ends up being the case. So keep that in mind. For the QQQ, we're looking a little bit more bearish. This could be dumping closer to where this gap fill happens to be at 509. We might attempt to rebound for 520, if not 522, and then we could reject and start dipping back down lower towards where the gap is around 510. So look for an attempt to retest 520 to 522, and if we reject, we could be dipping lower. So watch that gap down there around 509. Look for a rebound and a rejection, then we'll just have to see how things end up going from here. For Aapl, I also want to say Apple's looking a lot weaker. This might be dipping to about 244 to 242, so this could drag the market lower because of the fact that it's looking weak. There's a nice potential pivot that could be forming here, so be prepared for that just to be safe. I'm going to go for a speed run for the rest of these just to be safe, guys, because I am running out of time. For others, we have this gap to fill down here, especially on Netflix. I think that there's a chance it tries to retest 900 or so, maybe 910, but we'll see about 910. 900 could be retested, and we'll see if we reject, and then that could turn us right back down for 880. And if that fails us, we're looking for essentially the 864 area. Look for a rebound for 890, then a rejection as the most likely case. I'm sorry, 900, and then a potential rejection, and we'll see how it goes from there. MSTR might be retesting 322, but before that happens, before we come down to fill some gaps, we might attempt to rebound for 370, then we could reject off 370 and move back down to 322. So keep that in mind. For Celsius, we're looking more bearish as we're rejecting right here, especially as we have this imbalance down here to fill. We could attempt to rebound for 28 to 30. Maybe 28 could be retested right over here, which is where we have previous supports becoming resistance. So look for a rebound for 28, then a rejection, but then I do anticipate we will eventually fall to 25 as the most likely possibility. Celsius looks weaker. We do have a gap up here to fill, but we might come short. Notice this is forming a very, very nice looking arc, and this does tend to form a more distributive structure. This could be kind of like a left shoulder head, maybe like a little right shoulder right here before it starts to dump. We have a gap to fill down here around 29. Not to mention another one all the way down here at 21. Might rebound for 34 before 33 before it starts dipping back down for essentially 30, then eventually 29. So keep that in mind. For Palantir, we're doing decent. We're holding up a lot better than the markets, but to be bearish, you want to see it lose 69.33 to turn back down. I presume that we might try to rebound for 73.5 to 74, and then we could reject for 69.3. So a bounce and then a little rejection could be coming. Then we'll have to see what kind of reaction we get. If we lose the support, we could be dumping for 66.3, so keep that in mind. For Rivian, we have 12.97 as our support. If that fails us, we could be coming down to about 12.36. I presume we're going to be trying to rebound first for essentially 13.5 to 13.8. If we make a lower high here, then we could be turning to 12.97. And if that fails us, we fill the gap all the way down to 12.3. So look for a rebound for the 13s, 13.5 or so, then a rejection all the way back down to fill that gap as the most likely possibilities. SoFi has a bearish divergence and rejected here. If we don't hold above 15.5, we're looking for a move down to fill some gaps. And this could take us down towards about 14.5, which is where we have previous resistance becoming support. I think we might attempt to rebound for just under 16 before it starts to dip back down for the low of the day. So there's going to be a risk of more downside. For the IWM Russell 2000, we're very weak right now. Unfortunately, we got a rejection. It might attempt to retest 222. If that breaks, we're looking for 225 to 226 for a small rebound, and then we could reject again and eventually start dumping towards 215, especially because we have this gap all the way down here to fill around 212. So I think that this might rebound for 222 to 225, then reject and start dipping lower towards 215 to 211. For AMD, we look more bearish. We're looking very weak here, especially since we got this big rejection. The support over here around 116 could be where we are headed towards. Might retest 123 to 125 for a little rebound, and then we could continue to dump towards, the 118 level or below. For ARM, we look more bearish. We could retest 138 to 140, then start rejecting, and then this imbalance will drag us lower all the way down towards 133. Coin is looking more bearish as well, especially as we have this gap to fill. We could attempt to retest 290, then reject back down to 272. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down towards 258. So look for a rebound for just under 290. We'll have to see if we hold above that. If we do, we're looking for 302. So 290 to 302 are going to be our targets. We could reject off either one of them. Then we might be turning back down to fill some gaps below, especially as we have a weaker structure. So this is forming like a triple top, and this could lead to more downside, especially if we have these gaps to fill. So I suspect some upside and eventually a dip to fill this first gap, and then there's another gap down here. So watch for that. For Amazon, we have 219 as our main support. We could attempt to test 222 to 225, then reject for 219. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down towards 216, especially as we have this gap to fill down here. So I presume we're going to be looking for 222 to 225, then dump to about 219. If that fails us, we're looking for essentially 215. For Meta, we could be dumping as well. We're looking for a retest of 604, and if we reject, we're going to be looking for 591, then eventually 585. So be very, very careful, as there is going to be some downside potential. Look for a test of 604, then a rejection to 585. For Microsoft, I could be looking for a retest of 440. If we break that, I think we could get close to 444. But then here's the thing. I think that we could rebound a bit and then reject. And if we end up losing 438, we have this gap to fill down for 431. So look for 442 to 444, then a rejection is the most likely possibility, then a move back down. Google could retest 192, then start dipping back down for 186. And if that fails us, we're looking for 183. There's also this gap to fill around 177 if that fails us, so keep that in mind. For other things, we're looking for essentially as time progresses, we have 28.22 as our support. So if that fails us, we could be looking for 26.9. For AMC, we pumped and rejected. So we're looking for 4 as our main support. And we could be looking for essentially 3.8 as a potential target. DJT is going to be testing 34.5. If that fails us, we're looking for 31.8. So that could also slow down. For the VIX, it's breaking out right now. It is looking bullish. However, there could be an attempt to retest 25 before it continues to go higher, which makes me think the market may rebound a bit before this thing eventually breaks out even more. So we'll see what happens from there. The 10-year Treasury yield looks more bullish because the Fed is expected to keep rates higher for longer, cut at a slower pace, excuse me. So that is why this is pumping, and the dollar is pumping, which tends to be bearish for the markets in terms of its trend. So my view of the market is simple, especially for Tesla. Look for a rebound attempt tomorrow. I think Tesla will try to get close to 450. We'll see how well we hold up after all this negative sentiment that's come out. So if we break 450, we could be looking for 458 and 460 as our targets. But then be careful, because Tesla may be making a lower high, and it could start to dip even more if the whole market gets rug pulled more. Tesla does have these gaps to fill below, so just be careful. So a pump and a dump could be a possibility, but we'll see, just to be safe. Watch the levels I called out. I thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be back tomorrow before the market ends up opening. Thank you again, and peace out.